you guys to be curious. I don't want to come off sounding like this is how you have to do everything. I want you to be curious and open-minded, like I know you probably are because you're with Mr. Duhan. But I want you to think of some things that would relate to you personally as we work through this information, and what it would be like if you were to apply this information to maybe a sport, or maybe to an activity that you already do in the gym. So if you're good at squatting, or good at deadlifting, or good at power cleans, or good at lots of multi-directional movement, or you like playing baseball, soccer, football, you name it, think of some of the ways in which you can take this information and apply to something that you're already confident in. I find that when we teach a lot of information to people, we need to meet them where they need to be met. And in saying that, we're looking at doing the same thing with our clients as well as with the kids and the people that we're teaching, is that we just got to find a way that's going to make it work for you. So that being said, does anyone have any questions before we get going? No? Good. All right. Did you guys cover the exercise equations?
No.
Nope,
okay.
Not yet. Go for it.
Awesome. So for me, this is kind of where I like to start, because it gives us the foundation of knowing that any exercise we do is just movement and forces. So go ahead and write that down. Any exercise we do is just movement and forces.
Next quiz is over biomechanics.
You guys started studying the forces stuff, right? Just the other day?
Yeah.
So the equation for force is mass times acceleration.
Force equals mass times acceleration.
Yeah, I know.
Here are your two equations that we'll start with. So exercise is movement plus forces. What does that mean? That basically means that any exercise we do has to involve movement. But the second part of that equation is there's forces involved in any movement that we do. And so we'll just kind of extrapolate on both sides of that equation. Because that's really going to be the meat and potatoes of everything that you guys do as it pertains to personal training somebody. So with the equation force is mass times acceleration, if we were to do, say, a squat, okay, so we all stand up, we're going to do a squatting activity. Go into a squat. Get rid of that numb bum that you have just been sitting on. We do a couple squats. Okay? So in that equation, your body weight or your body mass is basically the mass part of that equation. The acceleration part of that equation is something known as gravity. Okay? You got gravity and you got ground reaction force. You guys kind of followed a little bit of that the other day? Good. So gravity is basically the attraction between you and the earth. Okay? And it's measured in 1 G. So you got 1 G force. When we look at that equation, if we wanted to quantify it and be real technical, we could say that, well, that 1 G of force is actually 9.81 meters per second squared. But just for simplistic sake, we'll call it 1 G. We want to take the complex and make it simple.
Just put a 2 above the m squared.
So if we actually wanted to calculate that, we could take your mass in kilograms You Americans are familiar with kilograms, right? Okay, so we take your mass in kilograms, you'd have to divide your weight by 2.24, your weight in pounds divided by 2.24, and then multiply that by 1, and that would be your force in newtons.
Say that again?
Divide your weight by
2.24.
So if I weigh 100 kilograms, I wish, if I weighed 100 kilograms, my force would be 100 newtons.
Body weight divided by 2.24 pounds.
So he just went off an
And there would be 100 newtons of force for each squat that I did on Earth. Okay? So what would be my force on the moon?
Zero.
Zero. Because there's no gravity. Okay? Are you guys familiar with the power plate?
Be a terrible workout.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, so the power plate is a tool used to increase acceleration. So if I'm working on the power plate at 40 hertz, so I set it up for 40 vibrations per second, and I put it on a high amplitude, that's the equivalent of 5 G's of force. So if I do a squat now on the power plate, and I'm holding that position, and the plate is basically dropping out from underneath me, and it's doing it at 40 times per second, and the wave of each vibration is 4 millimeters on high, that's the equivalent of 5 G's of force. So if I'm a 100 kilogram dude, then that means I'm working at 500 newtons. So that's 5 times the speed of gravity that I'm working at. Higher force. Okay? Let's go back to Earth for a second. We're back on Earth, we're back on the ground. I add 400 kilos to my back.
It's a beast.
Okay? So it's a 100 kilo dude plus 400 kilos on my back, and I do one of these. And I do one. And I rack it. Okay? And I get out and my spleen pops out of my anus. I can't lift that much. But that would be the equivalent amount of force. The only difference is, on power plate I could do that for 60 seconds. That, I don't know how much time under tension it was, I probably didn't even stand up. But if I was able to complete that, let's say maybe it took me 10 seconds to complete that rep. How much force is going through my body? It could be an equal amount of force, but my time under tension is going to be greater on power plate. So the most important thing for you guys to understand with force is mass times acceleration is that we can get force in 2 different ways. We can do it through acceleration, or we can do it through increasing mass. Does that make sense?
Yep.